Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're so happy to be together. I think it's a year ago the last time we had a big Zoom meeting, so it's really nice to be able to reconnect again. My name is Chantal Bilodeau. I am the artistic director of the Arts and Climate Initiative and one of the co-organizer of Climate Change Theater Action. And I'm here with my two colleagues. I'll let them introduce themselves. Ian.
Hi, I'm Ian Garrett. I'm director of the Center for Sustainable Practice in the Arts, which is based in Toronto, but supports a number of projects, primarily in Canada. And I teach at York University, where I teach ecological design for performance, which will become relevant when I speak to you a little bit more at length about the design component in a little bit.
And Julia, thank you.
Yes, and I'm Julia Levine, she, her. I am artistic producer of Arts and Climate Initiative, working with Chantal and Ian on CCTA, and I'm based in New York City, Muncie, Lenape land. Good to see you all.
So thank you. We chose to do a Zoom meeting as opposed to a webinar because we wanted a sense of all of us being together, and a little bit later on, we'll be able to give you time for questions. So if anyone wants to speak up, we'll be able to do that. We have enabled captioning. So if you want to see the live English captions, you please click show captions and you'll have access to them. I also want to, can everybody find those show captions are at the bottom of the screen, right? Or at the top of the screen, at the top of the screen. So you can enable them there. Before we go any further, I want to say that I'm speaking to you today from New York City, the ancestral land of the Lenape people. I'm grateful for their stewardship of this land and those waters, and I pay my respect to the many diverse Indigenous people still connected to them. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. And Julia will put the link to the native land if you want to know, if you don't know on which land you're standing on, you can look up that map and it will give you an idea. So we are here to celebrate the launch of the 2021 anthology of climate change theater action plays called The Future is Not Fixed, Short Plays Envisioning a Global Green New Deal. In case you don't know, I'm guessing most of you know, but in case you don't know, Climate Change Theater Action, which we lovingly refer to as CCTA, is a festival of short plays about the climate crisis. It's a collaboration between the Arts and Climate Initiative and the Center for Sustainable Practice in the Arts. It happens every other year, every odd year. So 2021 and 2023 is a CCTA year again. We commission 50 playwrights from around the world to write a short plays about an aspect of climate change based on a theme. And then we make these plays available to anyone, anywhere in the world who wants to organize an event in their community using one or several plays from the collection. We've been doing this, it launched in 2015, so this year will be our 5th time. Next year will be our 10th anniversary. So we're very happy to be able to celebrate that with you. And then I'll pass it on to Julia, who will tell you a little bit more about what's in the anthology.
Excuse me, thank you. Yes, so all 50 plays from CCTA 2021 are published in this anthology around our 2021 theme of envisioning a global Green New Deal. So this theme was inspired by the US policy platform, Green New Deal, as a starting off point for dreaming up what the future might look like and how we might get there. And this anthology also includes 4 essays from 2021 participants, 1 essay on academic and artistic collaboration, and an essay on an activist approach to a CCTA event, and eco-design essay, which Ian will talk more about, and then finally a scholarly study on the role of CCTA in closing the hope gap. So that is the anthology. Stay tuned because we will be raffling off a few copies at the end of our time together today. And just to cover and celebrate some of our numbers, quantitative impact of 2021 CCTA. Many people came through despite the difficulties of the pandemic and adjusted their events as rules kept changing. So all told, we had 2,000 artists that participated. There were 10,000 audience members attending events around the world in 23 countries and 25 US states. So no small thing given the huge change of 2020 and the pandemic that we're still kind of rippling through. So with that, love to pass it to Ian for more.
Thank you. As I mentioned, I'm coming from Toronto, or Takaranto, the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, and the Métis, where the current treaty holders are the Mississaugas of the Credit. It is Dish with One Spoon Wampum Covenant area, an agreement to peaceably share the Great Lakes. I also originate. I grew up in Los Angeles in Tongva and Chumash land, and I bring that up because one of the things that the CCTA does, and that we leaned into with the approach to design in this iteration of the CCTA, was really around the global networked work that we could do together. Part of it being done out of necessity. We spent a lot of time online, but also part of it being done around connecting with various folks who are working under the banner of ecosonography. Over the years, we have introduced and refined introducing design responses to the climate change theater action plays, commissioning or doing an open call with the first round, and then moving into commissioning. And over the last couple of iterations, we've worked with Triga Creative, which is a group of eco-scenographers primarily based here in Toronto, and others to develop a workshop series and a commitment to try and create seed ideas for each of the CCTA plays. In 2019, we collected all of them that came from an in-person gathering in a design anthology that is a companion to that year's anthology, and we're working on one that goes along with this year's anthology as well, doing that again as a separate document. But I wanted to share a few slides for context of the type of work that we were doing as we were working visually. It's probably helpful to see some of the components that we were working with. So I'll be just quick with a couple of these slides. When I mention ecosonography, we're working and collaborating with another designer based in Brisbane, Australia, who teaches at Griffith University, Tanya Beer, who coined the term ecosonography, which replaces or seeks to replace the way that we produce theater and sort of as a wasteful system into one of circularity, looking at our pre-production phase as one of co-creation with others and worlding with human and non-human collaboration through community and material, that our performances become acts of celebration, and that the actual material itself are not then discarded, but then become the basis for what we move forward with. We knowing that we wouldn't be able to have the same sort of studio space that we had in 2019, with this iteration of it, we moved things online, having a global design charrette for that was through an open call with primarily professional designers, and then also a collaboration between York University, Queensland University of Technology, and Griffith University in Australia through a global networked learning initiative to collaboratively work together on designing all of the plays. We worked through a number of different workshops with other echoscenographic practitioners working globally. Sometimes some of us were able to meet in person. Many of us appeared on screen. It coordinated with a reading group in addition to the CCTA plays and readings, looking at other important texts, working through a collective workshopping process as well, so that we ultimately had the development of design ideas and experimentations that responded to any number of the plays. Ultimately, we have all 50. I just don't have all. I don't, nor do we have time to go through all 50 here, as well. So some of them turned out to be games. Some of them turned out to be theatrical sets. Some of them were site-specific responses and installations. Some of them were done collaboratively between students and professionals across. Some were done as individuals as well, coming up with any number of ideas. Where it ultimately culminated, though, was actually the following summer at World Stage Design in Calgary, which is a quadrennial event for stage designers, which had an echoscenographic theme running through it, both in terms of exhibited materials. There were readings and performances of the plays here being done outside with hay bales, along with other similar. This is a process called a project called Recess Time, coming from Singapore, which connects with food waste as well as conferencing materials. But importantly, that all of the 50 design ideas were turned into poster presentations and exhibited throughout the course of World Stage Design, and then into the month of August, continuing past the festival at C Space King Edward in their hallway galleries, being able to share the CCTA plays and those design ideas with a wider audience. They also, well, all of the Australian ones got displayed again in Australia. All of the Canadian ones, FedEx abandoned them someplace near the York University campus, as far as I know. But we're working on a companion design book, lookbook, with those elements that will go along with the anthology of plays this time as well, and hope to continue this and this approach with this next iteration in 2023.
Thank you, Ian. Hopefully 1 year I can go and see all of those designs in person. So now I would like to share some of the plays that are included in the anthology. We have several guests here today who will read their plays. I would start, if I can invite Marcus and Seth to come. Here we go, we're gonna spotlight you. And if you want to say maybe a few words about how you came about to write this play, maybe who you are, how you came about to write this play, and then reading of the play.
Sure. Thank you so much, Chantal, and thank you, or congratulations, I should say, Chantal and Julia and Ian. It's amazing and so great to be here. And thanks, folks, for coming. I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Marcus Youssef. I'm on unceded Coast Salish territory, otherwise known as Vancouver, BC, on the west coast of Canada, about 2 blocks from my good friend, Seth Klein, who joins me. Seth, do you want to introduce yourself?
And I'm Seth Klein, and I'm neither a playwright nor an actor. I'm an interloper here at Marcus's invitation and down the street from him.
Yeah, so that's, I guess, a bit of the intro is that is that I completely roped Seth into working on this with me. We created it together. I kind of wrote it, but we did it together. And the sort of background is, so this is the second time, Chantal, you asked me to do this, which is so hugely flattering. And when you told me the theme, the Global Green New Deal, I was like, well, my kind of emerging friend, Seth, two blocks away, is kind of a Canada's expert, one of Canada's experts on this question. And trouble with the form that we're going to share with you now is by introducing it, you can kind of give it all away. So I won't give it all away. But I was like, that it seems to me that anything I can think of is probably going to be ultimately less kind of compelling or interesting than actually the person who has the expertise, because I'm just a playwright, really. And I guess the other factor is that when you asked me, and this is sort of in the piece too, that I actually had limited capacity at the time to make anything up. And that's just where I was at in my life. And so this was a great way of kind of handling that, because I wanted to participate. So I think that's what I've got for you for an introduction. Seth, do you want to add anything before we start? No, you're good?
No,
Okay.
just to say, technically, you got a little choppy there. Was Marcus choppy for others as well?
Yeah, probably. This is just a condition of my Wi-Fi, which it's been explained to me many times that my Wi-Fi is very good by the company that provides it, but that's not the evidence that what the evidence suggests. So yes, I apologize for that. Seth, if it screws up somehow during the reading or whatever, just tell me and we can kind of figure it out. Yeah?
Someone can interrupt and tell us if it's not going through.
Yeah, that will be fine. Okay, so we're going to start. It's called So Beautiful Today, So Sunny. And we are walking.
Outside in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada.
Unceded Coast Salish territory.
On a cold day in late January 2021, during the second wave of the COVID pandemic.
Hey, Seth, thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome. And also, just before we start, I just want to say I'm sorry about your dad.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Seth. I appreciate that.
You were close.
Yeah, we were. Thank you.
You've talked about him with me.
Yeah, no, it's hard. I mean, my father is a very powerful figure in my life, as dads are, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought we could just wander towards Trout Lake, because that's where I like to walk.
I'm happy with that.
Great. So beautiful today, hey? It's so sunny. So I'm just going to dive in. Can you introduce yourself in, whatever way you feel like you want to?
Okay. My name is Seth Klein. I most recently am the author of a book, A Good War, Mobilizing Canada for the Climate Emergency. For 22 years before that, I was the founding director of the British Columbia chapter of the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives.
And over the last few years, you've gotten kind of laser focused on climate change as an issue.
Yeah, I am very focused on the gap between what the science says we have to do and what our politics seems prepared to entertain, and figuring out how to tackle that gap.
Yeah, and for you, Seth, is that what the Green New Deal is?
I think the Green New Deal is a central and powerful model for bridging that gap.
So what is the Green New Deal? Can you give us like the one paragraph summary?
Okay, so like the original New Deal, the Green New Deal takes a profound crisis and meets it with massive public investment. It's an ambitious plan to spend billions in new green infrastructure to electrify everything and create millions of jobs. Not sure that was quite a paragraph.
No, that was a very good paragraph.
Okay, thanks. Well, actually, can I add, the Green New Deal is about linking climate mobilization with tackling inequality. What I learned in my research about the effort to mobilize Canada for the Second World War is that it was actually hard to do with, the typical propaganda, go across the sea and go get Hitler. That works, but only to a point. To truly mobilize people, the government had to promise that the society people came back to was going to be different and more just, which happened. Canada saw its first major income support programs introduced in the war. Unemployment insurance in 1940, the family allowance in 1944. It's the same with the Green New Deal today.
So what's the best argument against it?
What's the best argument against the Green New Deal?
Yeah, like if you had to choose one.
That it's not realistic or feasible.
Okay, so what about that argument keeps you up at night a little?
None of it.
Really?
Really. I talk about it in my book. We are all trapped by the legacy of 40 years of neoliberalism that has told us what is and isn't allowed or possible. The powerful thing about an emergency, whether it's the war or COVID, is that things that seemed politically or economically off limits suddenly become possible. If you had said to Canadians in 1938, does the government have what it takes to completely transform the economy? I'm pretty sure most people would have said no. It's going to happen with climate too. The only question is whether or not it will happen in time. That's what keeps me up at night.
I'm also conscious that some people who are watching what we've constructed right now are not from wealthy industrialized countries. How does that impact what you're talking about?
That's a hard one. That's a fair question. The other piece of the legacy of neoliberalism is that it has undone our sense of our ability to do grand things together. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but history is full of surprises of how quickly we pivot if and when we recognize emergencies for what they are. And I believe each society has to excavate its history for those relevant examples.
When I pitched this to you, I said this year the theme for CCTA is envisioning a Green New Deal. And you were like, oh, so this time you're not going to write something so nihilistic.
Less dystopian.
Right. Sorry. You said less dystopian.
Yeah. Your last piece was very dystopian, Marcus.
Yes, it was.
So, there's a lot of artistic work that tackles climate, but it's almost universally dystopian.
What's your read on that?
It's understandable. I mean, when you think about climate, we imagine this terrifying hellscape. But I'm also struck that a lot of the artistic mobilization for the Second World War was not like that. Even though they were surrounded by death and destruction, it was positive. It was rallying the public.
Yeah, I wonder if that's because artists don't want to be propagandists.
Yeah, well, you can't tell artists what to do. I get that. I think the Green New Deal needs to have a big arts component, just like the original New Deal. And in World War II, artists walked this careful line. They were forthright about the gravity of the crisis, and yet still managed to impart hope. Everyone's got different stories to draw on that invite us to say in moments of existential threat or crisis, who do we want to be?
Totally. I mean, everybody goes through crisis in some way, right? It's part of the human experience.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to say again, I'm really sorry about your death.
Thank you. Thanks, Seth. I appreciate that. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening. And Seth, so interesting to hear it, like the moment we recorded it. Sorry, just very quickly, just the kind of weird moment of hope that when we talked, like around the pandemic and the mobilizations. Very fascinating to read it now.
Thank you both. It is really interesting to hear now, and it's so fun to hear in your own voice too. This play was included in our launch, the big kickoff event for CCTA 2021, and so we had actors here in New York do it. But it's fun to hear the play in your own voice. Thank you. Now let's move on to Madeline.
Okay. Cha Natili Sichokais. Hey everybody, I'm Madeline. I'm a citizen of the Mohegan tribe in Connecticut. currently zooming in from Akamal Adam and Pipash Land in Tempe, Arizona. So, sorry, I'm still thinking about the piece before, you know, it's that hard thing of like transitioning. So thank you for sharing that. So this piece was originally written, I also felt super grateful that Chantal had asked me to do this a second time. And I think I was really hung up on the phrasing coming from you know, indigenous community and worldview, the phrasing of it having to be a deal, like there had to be something that was gonna like appeal about not destroying the planet, was really something that I got a little hung up on in terms of what I decided to grapple with. So the piece was sort of inspired by the idea that even a Green New Deal still operates out of a commodity economy as opposed to a gift economy principle. And if we're truly to heal our planet, we have to go further to remember that Earth's natural principles of exchange and relation and reciprocity, we have to remember how those operate, or we'll never give back what we'll never give back to her what she's actually owed. It's been really interesting. This piece can be spoken by one person or many people. And so it's been really cool to see over the course of this CCTA, all the different ways they've approached it. Okay. Do you need a deal, a plan, an offer, a man with charts to assure you that killing your mother is wrong? A point system that awards cute perks if we can all agree killing our mother is wrong. Well, is it? Can you admit it without incentive? Or would you destroy what creates you? Would you murder your mother, Earth? Have you forgotten that particular relation? Has penny pinching politics got you hooked on the belief that survival is supposed to be expensive? That existence is not a right, but a luxury bought by the abuse and extraction of our mother? Our mother. I'm talking about our mother. Our abuse of our mother. Can you really accept that? What are you thinking? Silence the noise for a moment, the should do's and will be's, the next time, the I, she separation of understandings, cut it all out. And remember this. Remember, to get to the future, we have to go all the way back. Yes, we together, we have to go back to the most important economic principle, the economy of our Mother Earth, whose rules of exchange are the rhythms of an ecosystem in harmony. Each gift given a bond forged, a union built between relatives, a partnership of reciprocity. Increase aids increase, life creates life. Her business is the constant flow between beings that nurtures a bountiful planet. I'm responsible for her because she is responsible for me. But when you break that cycle, when you stop returning the favor, snatch and steal with no accountability, give nothing back, we destroy ourselves. After all, how could plunging and pillaging the veins of your own mother bring anything but harm? Were you hoping there's a discount for that? Some way to avoid curses for the generations to come, as long as they do come? But if we continue down this path, they will not come for long. You see, we are bound. As human beings, we are bound to care for the earth, bound by the care we've received, and the knowledge that our lives are all in her hands, have always been. Moment to moment, pulse to pulse, there is no way out. That's what it means to be in relation. Our molecules, blood, bone, water, belong to her as well. There is no way out. So, why are we looking for one? Do you think Mars will ever hold you the same way? Offer you love and kindness the way she has? Show you a soft springtime or a bountiful autumn? Home is what we are made of. We cannot attach ourselves to any rock. I am bound to tell you that money, deals, commerce, these are the poisons of a world whose foundation has been laid, stolen brick by brick in the trespass against nature, by owning what can never be yours. A world built on taking without reciprocity, a world manufactured by the corrupt desires of mortal men, drilling deeper and deeper, clawing higher and higher, shattering every spirit in their way. How much poison can she take? Sometimes now, I see her, our mother, reaching out toward this world of greed, as if to say, wait, my children, wait, where are you going? Where do you think you are going, running so fast away from everything that holds you together? So fast you can't see yourselves falling apart. Why have you forced my arms away, battered, cut, abused, forgotten? What is it you are after on this mission of harm? And what would we say? What would we say to our poisoned relation? To the mother we choked, kicked, and disregarded when all she did was offer us love? That our destiny is beyond her now? That our eyes are fixed on the stars? That we will fix it later? Mother, one day we will clean up our rooms. You will see after this, someday after. But no, she will not hear it. We are running out of time. You see, global unity is no longer an option. It's the only possible way. She knows now. We have shown her who we are. We've shown her we are not to be trusted. Our lack of responsibility is apparent, and she is stronger than you think. When she next turns to us, it may be in love no longer. Her eyes are getting colder, her temper's hotter, less easy to bear, her moods more what we have deserved. She gave us gifts, but we were meant to give them back. She knows now who we are. If we cannot do better, she will take them away. She will take them all away. We are responsible for the land. The land was responsible for us. But this earth lives in relation, in rules of exchange, reciprocity. We have polluted and poisoned, carved, drilled, mined and extracted, stolen and snared, and she is angry. If we can't prove our responsibility back, we may not be welcome home anymore. Tamawish, thank you.
Thank you, Madeline. Thank you. Such a great contrast with the previous play. It's nice to hear these plays back to back. It's also, so I remember you telling me a story about showing this play to your mom. Do you want to say briefly?
I can't remember what I said at the time. Well, so similar to what you were all talking about, right? Like it was, you know, it was written in a time of shutdown. And so I remember, I remember what it was. It was, I wrote a draft of it. I started trying to write it, and my mother told me that I wasn't in the right mental state to write it. And so I was like, so I needed to go and take some time and go get back in right relation with the earth in order to write it. And I said something like, and Chantal, you might remember better than me because it seems so long ago now, but I was like, well, I don't have time. It's due. I don't have time to go get in right relation with the earth. And she was just like, well, then you can't write it, can you? And I was just like, oh yeah, okay, I guess I'll go take care of that. But yeah, that was, at first I was thinking about the comment she made after where she was like, so you're writing a play about murdering your mother. Is this a Yeah, that
I
was
just,
yeah. She said I had to go, you know, in order to work on something that's about certain things, you have to go and get into the right place to do it.
yeah, I just love that your mom was able to like, no, you're not doing this right. Thank you. Next we have Camila.
Hello. Thank you, Chantal. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. So I wrote this play. There was in Chile, and it was locked down too. And did I present myself first? Should I? So I'm Camila Le-bert. I am Chilean, but I grew up in the United States. So I'm like a Grinchi, as my grandfather used to call me, Gringa Chilena. And I'm an actor and a playwright. And yeah, so I was here in Chile, and it was a double, I mean, lots of things happened around the world before the pandemic, but in Chile we had the estallido. So the estallido, or this social uprising, and actually I was thinking the best I could show you something here from my we thought everything was going to change, and we have this kind of, all the streets were kind of drawn upon. This is an artist, Kayosama, who he made like things with kind of classical art, and this says con todo sino pa qué, like all in sort of, and all of the political torture, etc. And a friend of mine made this, which is our government palace, and like it's full of women and it's on fire and it's going to be transformed, and we were very hopeful. And then the pandemic shut us all indoors, and everyone was very scared, and then, you know, death was upon us. So I lost a lot of members of my family during 2020. So that's kind of where the play came from, I guess. So here we go. When I was a kid, I was a member of the Junior World Wildlife Fund. Every month I'd get a magazine with a little black and white bear and some monkeys, a dolphin, a cheetah. I always liked cheetahs. I was never a Girl Scout, but I had my little black and white bear badge, and I felt like I had a duty to protect the planet. A lone ranger. If I saw someone throwing a piece of garbage on the floor, I would yell, "Litter! Litter!" It was like a capital sin, I guess. I wasn't really raised in the church. My family was more along the lines of non-practicing Marxists, if you really got down to it. Litter! But I imagine that's how religious people feel about sin, going against the divine. Litter! You're killing the whales, the cheetahs, the little black and white bears. I would run up, pick up the trash, and hold on to it until I found a garbage can and my mission was accomplished. I threw out my grandma's cigarettes too. My kid mind could not understand how someone could purposefully kill themselves every day. She wanted to kill me. I think she wanted to strangle her little gringa granddaughter for being so fucking McGruff. I had been brainwashed by the empire, she must have thought. But cigarettes were the least of her problems. She had survived the fight for a fair world and the violent backlash of the elite and its military minions, exile, the destruction of her country and her dreams. And now that I'm older, I see the lure of death. Life is exhausting. My grandfather died last year at 97. If I lived to be 97, I would have to wait until 2079 to die. 2079. Chile has the fourth highest suicide rate in the Americas. You know who kills themselves more? Men over 70. Death is everywhere. You know what the state pension is in Chile? 158,339 pesos a month. $223.96 a month. That's what you get when you have no savings, like me, like most of my friends. I don't want to make it to 2079. I've been to the cemetery so much I have a regular spot in the parking lot. Not a lot in the graveyard. I don't own anything. I always wanted my own apartment, but I've been living as an allegada since 2018. Allegada is what we call people in Chile that live in someone else's house because they either can't afford their own place or a catastrophe has taken their house, an earthquake, a tsunami, a fire, a mudslide. We have a lot of allegados. A lot of people crammed together and a lot of natural disasters. We are also the birthplace of neoliberalism, aka capitalism that holds respect for no one and no thing. They sold everything: schools, water, gas, the phone company, the roads. You can't walk a block around your house in Chile without someone charging you for something. They call it entrepreneurship. We faked it so long, we thought we actually made it. Now, we're going to bury neoliberalism. We are leaving our little apartments and we are taking back the streets. These are our roads. This is our water and this is our air. And it isn't woo. I am not a hippie and it is not impossible. We can share. We can stop pretending we're going to be one of them because we're not. We're all one paycheck away. I'll meet you halfway. There are other ways to do things. We just proved it. And we'll find Garcia Lorca in the watermelons, and we'll do more than just survive, and we won't believe the lies because we will know better. We, dare I say it, will have class consciousness, and we will tell them to trickle down their own economics. We won't have to break our souls smiling for a tip. You won't have to wait for me to be good because we won't depend on charity or crowdfunding support to pay for life-threatening surgery because we will all take care of each other. We don't want things back to normal. My friends can make a difference. Take back the internet, copy or die, free the PDFs. I got you. It wasn't depression, it was capitalism. Huddled masses, broken bones, making history. For all those who came before me, we can do it. Things change. I don't regret throwing out Nana's cigarettes. It's been a while since I saw someone throw garbage on the ground. Litter bugs are going extinct. And the white and black bears are still around. Let's check out 2079. Thanks.
Thank you, Camila. Wonderful. Can I ask everybody else to come on? Ian, maybe you can spotlight everybody. So we don't have as much time as I expected. So maybe I can ask those of you in the audience, if you have any question, put a star in the chat and we'll get to you. And but before we get to questions, I wanted to at least have a chance to ask all of you who read and just heard each other's play to respond to what you heard. I think there's some echoes from one play to the other that I find very interesting, like echoes of neoliberalism, a sense of the urgency and the despair of a present situation and the hope that might get us to something better. So if you want to, if you each want to respond briefly to what you heard, that would be great. and just jump in. Madeline, did you have?
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say something. Yeah, one of the things that I feel like that struck me that was really powerful was I think also because of the moment in time that they were written, also feeling like the pandemic was also very forefront. I felt like the sense of and it first struck me, I think, with Marcus and Seth's play, because of the framing of Marcus's dad having just passed away. There was this sense, I felt like, listening to all of them, about intergenerationality that just existed in a really profound way, as a consciousness around the climate emergency. And I also was thinking about that too, right, with this 2079. And what it would, and it's funny because I not funny, but I had never thought about the actual dates, right? I always think, oh, the world's going to end before then, but I never think like, what would that date be if I was to live to X? And so I just felt that consciousness around intergenerationality, and that the way that relationality and intergenerationality and the idea of ancestors and descendants intersects with the sense of this moment in time feeling very forefront as a kind of emergency, just was something that struck me.
Thank you.
I'll sort of jump in. I mean, the pandemic, I really agree with that, Madeline, and that pandemic thing, and the sense of the relationship between, for me, the relationship between our personal disaster and like in relationship to like you. Oh, have I frozen? Oh,
Yeah, you
sorry.
just got back. You just came back. You're good.
Back. Sorry.
Yeah.
There it is. Now I'm back. That's my excellent internet. I apologize. The personal experience of emergency in relationship to this kind of unspeakable or unknowable emergency that is also extremely real, and the sense with each of us, like what's happening in Chile, the story you told about your mom, like the sense that each of us, like the great mystery at the heart of all of our emergencies, and something about the connection to this crazy thing that was going on feels really, and also just for me, the fact that we were all speaking fundamentally in our own voices, and just whatever that choice is, I can't speak for you guys on why you decided to do that, but that choice to speak in our own voices and to not dramatize in some fundamental way, but actually just to kind of say whatever was occurring for us, yeah, that's what I noticed.
Thank you.
I just want to say, first of all, Madeline and Camila, I loved your plays, both of them. And yeah, I too was struck by these threads. So through them, like, so first of all, you've got the New Deal and the Green New Deal and neoliberalism as these two counterpoints, right? And there is a neoliberal response to the climate crisis, which is about trying to, the mantra I use is, what's wrong with our approach at the moment is that we're trying to incentivize our way to victory. And I was struck that Madeline used that word, that incentivization approach. And it's a path to hell. We're going to fry if this is what we hold on to. And then it is also really, I'm sure that Chantal, when you issued the invite, it was pre-pandemic, but we were all writing in the pandemic. I know in my own case, like I'd written this whole book excavating this 80-year-old story, and then it came out in a pandemic. And when Marcus and I went for our walk, it was still early in the pandemic. And I mean, I'm sure this wasn't true in the United States, but at least in Canada, in those early months, we were mostly our best selves. Like social solidarity was at a high point in our lives. And we mostly have pissed it away. And we mostly pissed it away because we failed to hold on to those lessons from the original New Deal, that you had to connect it to inequality. You had to, it had to be more than just, well, we missed half the equation. And Madeline, I really, I love the reminder in yours that this isn't like some wonky thing that's just about fuel swapping and electrification. If it isn't about shifting the balance of how we actually live, it's not going to work.
I think something, Seth, I'm just going to say, because I think that it just in connection that I don't think I ever fully realized I was thinking about at the time when I was writing this, was I think that I was also very conscious, I think as we all were, of trying not to accidentally kill our relatives. And like in a very real way, right? Where from day to day, we weren't normally like previous to that, like, oh, I could make a decision that would literally lead to my mother dying. And so I think that also, that aspect of what you were saying about the social consciousness was also very much playing into like the mental framework of that time. And now I do feel like it's sort of slipped away to some degree, but how that actually, I think, helped us in that moment think about, wait, what does that mean to do these other things that have these social ramifications, these ecological ramifications? And then what does it mean now that so many people have just, it's that whole sense of the world has gone back to normal.
Camila?
Yeah, I love the plays. They're so good. I think it's interesting. I think, yeah, it was obviously the pandemic is the plague, right? It's like I don't know, very, very traumatic experience that we all lived. And it's kind of like a war or something, like you can't pontificate when like in these extreme situations. So maybe that's a reason why we had to just talk, like be very personal. Like we can't, it's hard to make these generalizations or like put ourselves in a different position maybe. And I thought it was really interesting the way, so it's like these arguments for logic and love kind of that you try to make. But like now, for example, so we had in Chile, we had a kind of, it's like a little, I guess maybe similar to Black Lives Matter in some sense, but that we felt like we had this incredible revolution. We thought everything was going to change. We voted for like a new constitution. We voted like a, never, something that had never happened in our history. It was a gender parity drafted constitution, and we voted for the constituents. I mean, the people who were going to draft the constitution. They wrote this amazing constitution that was, going to change the world, and then everyone rejected it. Like 66% of the population said they didn't want to recognize indigenous populations. They didn't want to say animals had feelings. They didn't want water to be kind of regulated, not as a private kind of property. And so our sense of failure is for like our group, like the people, it's kind of very difficult to come back from. And then the far right is giving more power to police. And so it's I don't know where I read something that's like the rise of fascism is like every failed revolution, like the consequence. And so it would seem like our arguments for love and logic, they're like, it's not a logical argument, or it's such a hard, you know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe it's confusing, but like, it seemed like this makes sense. Yeah, let's do this. And like, if we do this and the difference, I know, like humanity is kind of supposedly different because we sacrifice for the greater good and we think about community, and then the neoliberal response, at least from, I'm writing a play on the far right, is not everyone can save themselves, but you can because you're smart. And like, if you have money, you'll just, screw everyone else. The smart people will survive, and the smart people are the people that have, the guns or whatever. So yeah, and again, it was so we also had the pandemic, like, oh, free the vaccines, and then no, not really. Like, we don't want we still want to keep the intellectual property and etc.
I find it both interesting and a tribute to the power of writing that the plays are so very relevant today, after a couple of years, and also heartbreaking because it doesn't feel like we've moved terribly from where we were at that moment. I mean, we've certainly moved from the pandemic, but in terms of the climate, there's not a palpable sense of, even though there are some changes, there's not a palpable sense of being in a very different place from that time. So yeah.
Oh, it's just to jump in quickly, just because a couple of days ago, Seth and I went for the same walk, just because we were doing this, and we just went and repeated the walk, and it without hopefully being a downer, but it's kind of mentioned this earlier, like too. It's like there was this in our walk, Seth. I remember very clearly this kind of sense of like possibility, like that felt like, and not just around how we were treating each other. And I think what you said, Madeline, is absolutely right in terms of the signal that we got, like about attentiveness or care or something, but this possibility about like social change. And it's funny because I'm experiencing, and now it really, I mean, Seth and I were talking about like the provincial. So we have, the federal government here in provinces. Our provincial government is now literally run by people we are very connected to. And we don't feel like the things that need to be done are being done, even though we know those people really well and feel deeply connected to them. And I'm struck, sorry, this is a bit long, but I'm in rehearsals right now with a really fantastic dance company here that I'm helping co-create a work, and the trauma that came in the performance community of just like us all being forced to stop, like that thing, and now coming back, and that same feeling of like, no, my internet connection again, sorry. The same feeling of all these kind of lessons that felt like they were learned in the performing arts community around, or things that came up around care and about how we treat each other and how we work and all those kinds of things, struggling desperately to figure out how to now hold on to those. And yet at the same time, the economic kind of, circumstances in which the work is made make it almost impossible, particularly for those people who run the little companies that, that have to do it. I don't know. This is a downer kind of statement, and I apologize for that, but I think that how to fold in that moment into this one is a big question, because it did feel like, I don't know, I feel the loss of that kind of possibility, even in the midst of the tragedies that were happening.
I agree. There was a big sense of possibility coming out of the pandemic. Like, we've learned some big lessons, and then we're looking like, what happened?
Well,
yeah, go ahead, and then I'll switch over. Yeah.
Learn how quickly we can change a lot of things. The
yes.
key we didn't learn was around inequality, which is related to those lessons of the New Deal. Like in all of our countries now, people are wrestling with inflation, and a huge amount of that inflation is driven by just rampant profiteering. In the emergency I write about, the Second World War, that in my country, in the US, in the UK, that kind of profiteering was illegal. Because that's how you sustain a sense of social solidarity, that we're all actually in it together. Whereas in the pandemic, we spent the first few months with this mantra, like we're all in it together, but it turned out we weren't. Some people were making a lot of sacrifices and other people were making a killing. And that was corrosive to that spirit that we need to confront emergencies.
Thank you for correcting me.
I just want to thank Celie too for her positive, or their, I should say, their positive chat note.
Comment. Yeah, so I didn't see anybody. Does anyone have questions? I didn't see anybody posting. I want to take so we're quickly running out of time, and I want to take a minute to ask. I know there are some people in the audience today who have also contributed to the anthology, and of course we were not able to feature everyone, and because of the time difference it made it impossible for some people to attend, but I want to give a shout out to the writers who are present, and maybe I'll call your name, hopefully you're there, and maybe just unmute yourself, say your name, where you're calling from, and what you contributed to the anthology. Is A1 here? Okay, how about Imali? Yes, I know you're here.
Hi, I'm Himali. I'm from Bombay. It's the middle of the night. Woken up to say hi to everybody and listen to these beautiful plays. Thank you. And shout out to Camila, who I met a year ago in Austria. So hey.
And what's the title of your play, Imali?
The title of my play was Friends for Life. It's based on a movement of taking availability of water in their own hands by a group of rural women in the center of India.
Thank you. And thank you for being up in the middle of the night to be with us.
Pleasure.
Is Joan Lipkin here? I know she was going to call. She was in transit and she was maybe going to call from her phone. I don't think she's here. Karen Elias?
Hi, I'm Karen Elias. I live in Pennsylvania in the United States, and I contributed a play called The Persistence of Possibility, ironically.
Thanks, Karen. Is Keith here? Keith Barker? Margaret? These are people who aren't signed up, but maybe couldn't attend in the end. How about Nicolas Dion? I also have Nikhil from India. I think you're here. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Nikhil Katara. I'm from India, Mumbai. My play was called Truth or Something Like It. So when Chantal gave me the idea of working around something around the Green New Deal, I went back to Mahatma Gandhi and found something which was relevant to that in his notes. So the play kind of dwelled out with that. So thank you for that.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And is Patty here? Okay, well, India, strongly represented. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. You know, short of doing an in-person event where nobody could come because we're all over the world, it's really great to be in one Zoom meeting together. So and the anthology, Julia will put the link in the chat. You can buy it directly from Applause Book. You can also find it on any of your Amazon locally, wherever you are, or most local online bookstore. We're hoping the plays will continue to circulate and be used and be studied. Every once in a while, I hear about universities who are doing events and are using their plays, and that's always really exciting. We have Climate Change Theater Action 2023 coming up. The theme will be announced this week. I know. And if you're interested in, a lot of people in the audience today have organized the event in 2021. So if you're interested in participating again and you're on our mailing list, you'll get all of the information early next week. We also have, actually, Ian, do you want to say the big news about the website?
that we're working with a great firm here with us in Toronto called Surface Impression to rebuild it. We were lucky and fortunate to receive some great support from the Canada Council for the Arts to revision and rebuild it substantially to be able to make it more useful to help everybody connect through the CCTA, through past CCTAs, and hopefully for future CCTAs.
All of this to say, we're well aware that the site is not super user-friendly or functional at the moment, but it's in the process of being updated. Also, on May 20th, we will have a CCTA meetup where some past presenters will talk about what they did, what kind of events they organized, and we'll give all the spiel about how to participate, what CCTA is, how to participate, and have a chance for people to make connections if they want to work together. We have just a few minutes left, so I'm wondering if our guests here would like to say a last word before we close. Maybe something hopeful going forward.
Yeah, I would like to say it's such a interesting and I don't know, it's the intersection of art and activism is so rich, and just to have all of these people here today and just to continue nurturing connections and projects is, like Himali said, we met in Austria and we saw kids 20-year-olds from Graz doing our plays, and it's, I don't know if it's capitalism, but it's this, our society tends to kind of make everything so separate, and just in like crossing things and having science and art and activism, and I don't know, I just think that this is a wonderful activity, and we just need to continue meeting virtually, personally, etc.
I agree with that.
I'll jump in and just say, sort of repeating myself slightly, but I think many of us on this call know what making things like this happen take in terms of time and energy and to, so to say, and raising funds and resources and organization and all of it. And so to say, especially in a discipline like ours, which exists on the margins, which is both its great advantage and what's hard about it at the same time, in my experience, all of which is to say, Chantal and Julia and Ian, thank you so much for your devotion. And it's a devotional practice, I think, our practice, and I salute you for this amazing opportunity to meet these amazing writers whose work I wasn't familiar with, and so thank you.
Thank you, Marcus.
Just throw in an extra thank you.
Yeah, plus 1,000.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. Maybe I could share a final thought. I've been tracking the comments in the chat, and earlier on, people highlighting these themes around loss. I think strikes me, this is what's hard about climate. Most of the fights we've spent our lives in and our ancestors have fought in, whether it's tackling a dictator or a war or, I don't know, marriage equality, you name it, you either win it or you lose it. Climate doesn't work that way. Climate is a matter of degrees, and each fraction of a degree has consequences, and we're going to suffer collectively losses, but no matter what happens before things get better. And it's hard to do this work knowing that even if we do everything right from this moment, we're still going to suffer horrendous losses for the next little while. And yet to not do everything that we can to prevent the next fraction of a degree is obscene. And I want to make a final point around all these parallels that have been made about COVID, as well as these other emergencies. You know, people sometimes say to me, like, I'm all about emergency, all these things we have to do in emergency, climate emergency, this, that. And people say, look at COVID, look how quickly people tired of emergency. And here we all are saying all these other things we have to do in response to an emergency. So I want to make one important distinction between the topic that brings us together and COVID and the pandemic. The things we were called upon to do in the pandemic, and you know this well as artists, were anathema to all of our social instincts. Stay home, mask up, isolate. No wonder why that was so hard. And we had COVID fatigue from all of that. The good news about the climate emergency is that it calls on us to do precisely the opposite, to go out and do something grand together. And I think we can do that for a few years.
Thank you. So that's a wonderful thing to end on. Let's do something grand together. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Julia, Ian. Thank you, Seth, Marcus, Madeline, Camila. It was a wonderful thing to celebrate the launch of this anthology with you, and go CCTA 2023. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Gracias.